Good afternoon, or possibly morning, everyone. So we just got done with our statistics unit, and now we're going to talk about probability. Now I'd like to start by talking about what's the same about them and what's the difference. So now, a statistic, like we've been talking about, is when you look at what's happened in the past, and usually you'll try to predict what'll happen in the future based on that. Or you'll take a sample of something and make a prediction based on that. Now with probability, we usually want to make a prediction too. One difference right away. In statistics, they call that prediction an inference. In probability, they usually just call it a prediction. So now here's an example that highlights the big difference between statistics and probability. A statistic looks at the past, a probability just looks at possible outcomes. So we'll say a statistic. In the United States, sadly, 2/3 of all restaurants go out of business in the first 6 months. So if we wanted to say, infer how many restaurants will be around in 6 months that just opened, only a third of them will still be around. Now, probability, on the other hand, probability a restaurant will succeed or fail in the first 6 months. Two possibilities, succeed or fail. The possibility that they succeed is 50%. This also shows why, depending on the circumstances, a statistic might be more useful, a probability might be more useful. In trying to figure out whether or not a restaurant's going to succeed, the statistic's going to be more useful than the probability. But let's pretend for a second you flip a coin 1,000 times. Now, we can probably guess that it would come up heads about half the time. But if we just flipped it 1,000 times and recorded whether or not it came up heads or tails, well, it might theoretically come up heads like 520 out of those 1,000 times. Which, if you used the statistic instead of the probability to try to guess whether it was going to come up heads or tails, you might end up thinking, oh, well, it came up heads 520 out of 1,000 times. I'll bet there's a 52% chance that it lands on heads. Well, with flipping a coin doesn't work that way. So for flipping a coin, probability is better. Now make sure you get these two little things. One, a probability can be expressed as a fraction or a decimal between 0 and 1, or it can be expressed as a percentage between 0 and 100%. And here's a really short way that we talk about trying to ask about a probability of an event. It's just P parenthesis event parenthesis. Example of probability of a flipped coin landing on heads is just written P parenthesis heads parenthesis equals. And then you'd write the parenthesis there. I mean, the probability there. So we'd say 50%. Now, just so you know, a lot of probability questions involve decks of cards. And I'm sure you all have seen cards from a deck of cards, but I know that a lot of you don't know all about all the different suits and the different numbers in them and stuff. It's kind of a generational thing. My grandmother's generation would have been great at math textbook probability questions for this reason. For you guys, I'd like to give you a little intro just in case you're not familiar. Now, with most questions they ask you, there are going to be two colors of cards, red and black. There are going to be 4 suits of cards, hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. Now note, hearts and diamonds are red, spades and clubs are black. So like this one right here, that's a heart. That ace right there is a club. That king right there is a spade. And that 8 right there is a diamond. Now let's see, 4 suits, 13 cards per suit. Numbered cards, 1 through 10, or they usually call the 1 an ace, ace through 10, and 3 face cards. The 3 face cards are a jack, a queen, and a king. So when you think about it, 4 suits, 13 cards each, there are 52 cards in a deck. For most questions, this is what you need right here. This 13 face cards, 4 suits, that's 52 cards in a deck. But if they mention jokers, once in a while they include these. It's exactly the same as before, but they added two cards. They added two jokers that they don't have a suit, they don't have a color that we usually mention or anything. It's just they're two extra cards. So those two jokers make for a total of 54 cards, if they include jokers. Thank you.